Next, how can culture of speech be used by a new devotee couple when their parents are not Krishna conscious devotees? How can we convince them without disrespecting their perspectives? Well, don't disrespect them, but don't stop doing your Krishna consciousness. I was mentioning the other day that in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni says that when relatives and friends, etc., try to take you away from the path of Krishna consciousness, they try to distract your mind or criticize you. Why are you doing so much of this? You should just simply say yes, 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 and keep doing what you have to do. Don't stop your chanting. Be respectful, but don't stop your chanting and hearing about Krishna. If necessary, do it in a way that doesn't irritate them, that doesn't provoke them. There are people I know who do it in a way that the others, not in their face, so to speak. But do it. Don't give up your Krishna consciousness and still be respectful to them. How to proceed in devotional service despite obstacles in family life? Well, there are obstacles everywhere. This material world is full of obstacles. Even if you're not in family life or you are in family life, there are always obstacles. So never mind. Just sincerely continue your Krishna consciousness and remember the program that Srila Prabhupada has given for us and follow those instructions. Will the recitation of the scriptures in the mind and verbal recitation have the same benefit? Verbal chanting is recommended. Say you're chanting the Mahamantra, you're chanting the Bhagavad Gita shlokas, Bhagavatam prayers. So the verbal chanting is beneficial because it makes you more attentive, it gives you more taste, and also it purifies the atmosphere around you and others around you will also hear. When two groups of devotees have an issue, how to solve the issue? Will keeping an Ishtagoshti help? It may help, it may not help. If everybody concerned can come step forward and be reasonable and accommodating, then things can be done. So it's a question of just facilitating that. We should always remember, issues will always be there in life. But our biggest issue is how to become Krishna conscious. We should never forget that. And for that, we need good relationships amongst the devotees. If we have issues amongst ourselves, then it's never going to be easy to become pure devotees and make others pure devotees. So we should give priority to settling these little things and not letting them grow further. Please provide one example of speech that is priyam, that is pleasing, but also causes udvega. It causes disturbance, agitation in the mind. I speak pleasing words about you when your neighbor gets agitated. No? Why is he not praising me? Okay, you mentioned that when others speak harshly, we should not take it seriously. But when we feel hurt in the heart, it is hard to ignore or forget. What to do about this? Yes, indeed, it is hard. As we read in Vidura's instructions to Dhritarashtra, it's like an arrow that pierces the heart. If there's a physical arrow that pierces your body, it can be taken out. But an arrow of words, sharp words that goes into the heart can't be taken out. And a person grieves day and night for it, smitten by that arrow. You remember that quote? So indeed it is hard, but we should console ourselves by higher spiritual intelligence, by understanding spiritual logic, For example, that I have probably hurt somebody, maybe this person in some previous life, or maybe in this life, and I'm just getting my karma, I'm getting that in return for what I have done to others, and this person is just an instrument for my karma, so why should I feel hatred against this person? And also we can pray to Krishna, chant Krishna, Hare Krishna nicely, and your mind will calm down. If you feel it is necessary at a practical level to discuss with the devotee so that this issue may be sorted out, that's also good. That is a Vaishnava way of doing things. We shouldn't keep things in the heart artificially to such a degree that one day we explode or we have some ailment. Then we better get some advice from some senior devotees on how we should proceed in the matter in that specific case. Sometimes, the next question, sometimes devotees mention that they feel they have been taken advantage of when they have helped. And the person whom you have helped ignores you or stops being friends, then you feel used. How does one deal with this? Never mind, you help somebody, right? Fine, forget it. It's all right. It's not a big deal. You help somebody and that person is not reciprocating with you or is not grateful to you. I think, where was it? Somewhere, I think perhaps it was in Melbourne or somewhere. I was telling the story about, no, maybe my first lecture here in Sydney.
At Armington Hall.
Yes, in my first lecture in Sydney, I was saying how in Kali Yuga it's expected that when you help somebody, the gratitude will only be 50%. The episode is of, somebody comes to Yudhishthira Maharaj with the question that I have a pot full of water and I pour it into many small pots. And then when I pour water from those small pots back into the big pot, it's only half full. But earlier it was full. So how is that? So Yudhishthira Maharaj explains that means Kali Yuga is coming. In Kali Yuga, you help someone and then they only return 50% in terms of gratitude. So there is this principle like that. So it's bound to happen in Kali Yuga, don't worry about it. And also, don't expect too much. When the problems arise, when we help somebody and we expect things in return. Asha hi paramo dukkha. The Bhagavatam says that expectations are the cause of our miseries. You expect things from people. This person should behave with me in such a way. That person should do this. Why is this person not reciprocating with me? Or I've helped this person so much. So while it is human for us to feel like that, but from a spiritual point of view, we should understand that this is the nature of expectations. If you expect, there will be misery, because your expectations will not always be fulfilled. So we should just relax and not worry about. We should just help because it pleases Krishna, and it will help that person. Never mind if that person doesn't do it. It reminds me of one saint, and I repeat this many times, who said that there are two things we should always remember and two things we should always forget. Yes? The two things we should always remember are the bad things we have done to others and the good things others have done to us. Yes? No. Huh? No, yes, I was waiting for somebody to be attentive. So what are the two things we should always forget?
Bad things others have done.
We should forget the good things we have done to others.
Yes.
And we should forget the bad things others have done to us. Okay, if you reverse it, then it becomes the opposite. So we should always forget two things. Number one, the good things we have done to others and the bad things others have done to us. The moment you do the good thing for somebody else, forget about it. Don't have expectations. It's between you and Krishna. You've done the best you could. Krishna is pleased. That's it. Similarly, when somebody else does something bad, it's between that person and Krishna. It's not your problem, as I was mentioning earlier. Someone speaks harshly to you. Not your problem. It's that person's mode of passion or mode of ignorance that is playing out. It's his issue with the modes of nature. Now, how you respond, it depends on how your modes of nature are acting. So two things we should always remember: the bad things we have done to others and the good things others have done to us. Yes? Is it getting too complicated? Okay. So please tell me, you can raise your hand and then give the answer. What are the two things we should forget? Raise your hand, someone. Okay? Please, yes. Say it loudly.
We should forget the good things that we have done to others and the bad things that others have done to us.
Okay, so we should forget the good things we have done to others. Yes? It's including the sweet speech. I've spoken so nicely to him or to her. But see how they responded. No, the moment I spoke well, forget. Right? So, we should forget how the good things we do to others and the bad things others do to us. And what are the two things we should always remember? Somebody? Yes, a little loudly.
The good things what others done to us.
The good things that others have done to us
The
and
bad things what we have done to them.
the bad things that we do to others. We should always remember. But normally it's the other way around. And people hold on. People hold on to things. And they remember even after many, many years, 20 years back, this person said such and such to me. The more you hold on, the more you suffer. Better to just let go. We have bigger things to do in life. We have to be a pure devotee. That's a big enough task. At the same time, because we are not stones, we are human, we have emotions, we have feelings, so sometimes these things do need to be dealt with. So we should deal with that in the appropriate way. At work or at family, when we talk in a pleasing way, not everyone responds in a good manner. Some people think we are stupid and they take us for granted. How to manage this? Remember the example of the snake. If you need to hiss, hiss. Yes. Sometimes do the needful, but don't bite. Apriyasya, pathyasya. Apriya and pathya. This oft-quoted familiar line which was repeated many times yesterday. How do we apply this in life amongst devotees when it comes to dealing with younger devotees? Srila Prabhupada even quotes Chanakya Pandit, Upadesho hi murkhanam prakopaya na shantaye. The meaning of this is that when we instruct a foolish person, then that person's anger doesn't diminish, he gets more angry. How do we put one and two together? Hope this question makes sense. Well, you see, devotees are not fools. So that the second part that Chanakya Pandit says is meant for materialistic people who are foolish. But it's not meant for devotees. So that's one thing. The second thing, your first question was, how can we tell younger devotees something that is beneficial for them, even though they may not like it? Well, it depends on whether you are the right person to tell them. If you're not the right person, if you don't think that the person is going to listen to you, don't give advice. See that there's somebody who is in a position to do that, gives advice. Then it will be appreciated. That's the nature of the world. However, if you have a kind of a relationship with that person, where the person will listen to you, he has trust in you, and will not mind listening to this good advice from you. And if you come across as being very genuine and having no ulterior motives, and if you are pleasant in the way you put it across, and your intelligence in the choice of your words and the language and the manner of presentation, and considerate of time, place and circumstance, then surely the younger devotees will listen. You see, the Vedic culture means that from the elders to the younger people, there should be a flow of love, and there should be a flow of shelter. And from the younger people to the older people, there should be a flow of respect and obedience. Love goes both ways, of course, also. That's how it should be. So if there is a relationship of love and trust, surely everybody will listen. Next, as for the culture of speech, we are to speak the truth, satyam, in this material world, especially while attending interviews or applying for jobs. We have to exaggerate. We have to exaggerate things which are not true, but to get the position. As a devotee, I'm guilty about it, but situation needs it. Please advise. I would not suggest you fudge your bio data. Just be honest about it. You can present it in a way that is more, shall we say, positive, but you don't have to fake things. Because even in practical terms, it may get you in trouble later. On one side, we say the Vallabha Sampradaya is bona fide. On the other hand, we condemn Vallabhacharya. It's confusing. No, we don't condemn Vallabhacharya. Certainly not. We don't condemn him. He is an exalted saint, and he's a great devotee. We have all respect for him. But this is the dealing between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vallabhacharya. And here we're talking of philosophical issues. There is a point of philosophical difference. But no, we should never criticize Vallabhacharya like that. Vallabhacharya, of course, this is not quite the topic. The question should be the topic, so I'll just give it about Vallabhacharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because we want to focus on the culture of speech. In one day, in our day-to-day life, if someone speaks with us harshly, how do we overcome that agitation, and how to deprive oneself of thinking of it and focusing back on Krishna? Practice it, and chant Hare Krishna. It happens to everybody. You're not the only one. Every single person, including Brahma, they have to go through this. So take it in your stride. We have to. We cannot afford to be, to let's say, block our Krishna consciousness and spoil our peace of mind to such an extent that, we can't chant our rounds. If two devotees are confronting each other in front of us, and there in that confrontation, culture of speech is not followed, what do? Just walk away because it's not our business, or try to reconcile the two? It depends on what your relationship is with both of them and what your position is with respect to both of them. So you have to see the time, place and person. What is your relationship and your status in devotional terms and in other terms like age and so on. It depends on that. How do we understand displeasing yet wholesome? If in some occasions it's allowed to be unpleasant, then how will we satisfy all those elements of speech? 4 elements. Well, that was the whole point. As I mentioned, that it is sometimes not possible to fulfill all those 4 elements of the austerity of speech, because amongst them there will be some conflict sometime. And therefore, amongst those 4, hitam, or speaking for the benefit of somebody, is the highest consideration. And that being the case, when one is motivated purely for the benefit of the other person, and when one is speaking with knowledge based on truth and on dharma, then apriya, something that is unpleasant, may be spoken. Yesterday we heard about speech without speaking. In the modern world, we also refer to this as body language. In our literature, where can I find how speech and body language are related? Go ahead. Well, a Vaishnava's speech and body language is that the Vaishnava is humble. The Vaishnava is very respectful and very devotional in everything he or she does. So just observe the dealings of devotees in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Read these scriptures and you'll get a better idea. If we have offended elders time and again, what's the recourse we have now? Well, don't do it again. And just patch up with them and beg forgiveness and settle the matter. What is the definition of constructive criticism? Devotees often criticize and say it is constructive criticism. How do we distinguish? Constructive criticism means you're doing something positive to solve the problem, and you are in a position to do it, and you are the right person to do it. And you're not doing it with any malicious intent, not doing it to relish some pleasure in hearing about the faults of others. You're purely motivated. That's the first criterion in constructive criticism. And you're also willing to do what it takes to solve the issue, rather than just being an idle spectator and criticizing. That's the problem. So these are the different elements of constructive criticism or the lack of it. Knowing it is the age of Kali, when will others start talking to me for my benefit? Right now, if you're open. If we are open, then people are always willing to help us. But we must also be open to receiving that help. How to handle the situation when a senior is asking for respect, despite the fact that he's already being well regarded. Give him the respect. What's the problem? No problem. Why should we hesitate so much in giving respect? No issue. There's hesitation in giving respect if we want respect. Right? Therefore, manadena, amanina, amanina, manadena. How do we have any hope of going back to Krishna, being even nowhere close to Yudhishthira, who had to visit hell for a moment because he lied? This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's vision. Mahaprabhu is the most munificent form of Krishna. So if we chant Hare Krishna nicely and work with the devotees, in a humble spirit, chanting as purely as we can, hearing nicely, and by Prabhupada's mercy, we will be eligible to go back to Godhead. You mentioned that the lifespan of a person who speaks excessively declines. What happens to the lifespan of a person who excessively hears such excessive speech. Stop hearing such excessive speech if you have a choice. How to keep ourselves reminded about the principles and instructions received from this seminar. Discuss it amongst yourselves. Keep your notes. Think about it. Remember it. And that way it will remain fresh in the mind. When there's Shravanam and there's Kirtanam, there will be Smaranam. Shravanam means to hear, Kirtanam means to speak, Smaranam means to remember. This is some comment about Dronacharya. Since communication is such an important aspect of relationships, what would your advice be to someone who wants to improve their self-expression, someone who has trouble expressing their feelings in order to deepen relationships? Well, we should learn from others who are proficient in doing that. And ultimately, we just become sincere devotees and hear carefully about how we should be dealing as Vaishnavas. Then by practice, we will be able to do that. You gave us 5 principles of austerity of speech and then a further 10 or so principles of speech. When there are pressing situations, it is difficult to think of all 15 principles. Sometimes you have to make split decisions, split-second decisions. How can we apply and remember all these principles in a natural way in such situations? Well, it's not that when a provocative situation comes that you open your book and say, which of these 15 do I apply now? You practice it in such a way that it just becomes your nature. That's what it means to become perfect. Practice makes perfect. I often give the example of typewriting or using your keyboard on your computer. You initially type with one finger and it's very slow, but when you learn the technique of it properly and you practice a lot, then you're able to type even without looking at the keyboard and your fingers just fly on the keyboard and you type correctly. So it's a question of practicing, being a devotee. The more we practice sincerely, everything will happen. As we read the quotes from Prabhupada regarding the speech, Prabhupada was talking about how with experience, with continuing activities in Krishna consciousness, we will learn how to speak the truth palatably. So similarly, we will also learn how to respond to provocative situations in life. Okay, so thank you very much. It's exactly 1 o'clock. The questions are over now. I would like to thank all of you for having come here to this 2-day seminar. You have all been a very attentive and patient audience. So I thank you for the time you have spent here, and I do hope that it will provide you with some food for thought. Before I move on, I say a word of thanks. I want to end with a little story that just come to my mind about how to speak pleasantly. There was a king, and an astrologer came to him, and he asked the astrologer to look into his chart. So the astrologer looked at it, and he was quite a straightforward, kind of blunt-speaking person. The astrologer says that all your relatives will die before you, and you will perform their last rites with your own hands. Now the king was very attached to his relatives, so he got very angry, and he threw the astrologer in jail. So then he called another astrologer, said, this astrologer is no good, call somebody else. So the second astrologer came along. The second astrologer had heard about the fate of the first astrologer. So he was more tactful. He saw the horoscope and came to the same conclusion as the first astrologer. But he put it in a different way. He said, "O king, how wonderful. I see that you're going to be very long-lived. And you will even live longer than your relatives." It meant the same thing. But he said it in a nice way, and the king was very happy and gave him gifts. So the point is that truth can be spoken palatably. As Prabhupada says, it's a question of us getting experience, practicing our Krishna consciousness better, and then automatically things will happen by Krishna's mercy. So now, apart from thanking all of you who have attended, I also want to offer my heartfelt thanks to all the devotees who have worked so hard for many, many weeks to get this seminar done, this retreat organized. And I can assure you it has not been an easy job. There's so much of organizational work that was required to be done. So I want to thank every one of the devotees who participated to whatever degree in making this seminar and this retreat possible. Now, I will not mention the names out of fear that I may even one name may slip my mind and I lose out somebody's name who may have worked. But my thanks to everybody who has offered even a little bit of service, and especially to those who have worked very hard. In particular, I cannot avoid but say that at least one devotee I must mention, and that is Asim Prabhu. Who has been the main brain and the thrust and the engine behind this whole retreat. It was his idea, his persuasion to me that I should come and do a retreat. He followed up with giving me all sorts of options, and then the planning started months ago. And then he was planning everything down to the smallest detail, very meticulously planning and paying attention to every little thing. And he engaged many, many devotees, delegated the services very nicely, tried to involve as many devotees as possible, executed everything also very nicely. And he and the devotees that worked with him spent sleepless nights. And you can see the results of everything being so nicely organized. The prasadam and the arrangements for accommodation, the facilities, and everything has just been so nicely done. So we'd like to pray to Radha Gopinath that they can bless you, Asim, and all the other devotees who have served with you. As I said, I don't want to mention other names because I don't want to miss out even one devotee's name. So he has provided the thrust and the leadership to get these devotees together to organize such a nice festival of devotees coming together to hear him chant about Krishna. So thank you very much to everybody. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Just wanted to give you just a few more announcements. I know you're all looking forward to lunch prasadam, which will be up shortly. Just a couple of things. Firstly, the following devotees, if I could humbly request you to help in preparation of serving lunch prasadam. So the devotees on the left, soon what we'll be doing is giving out some gifts to all the attendees. So especially those who are serving, if you can come with your families, I will ask you to come towards my right and actually accept the gifts. Maharaji will be serving them. And it's one gift per family, but we've got some prasad as well, which we'll hand out, and that's one per person. There's some cookies And then we've got gifts for children as well. So if you come as a family, it would be very nice and Nigel will be able to give you those gifts. Just a